everybody.
Hi, Mr. President.
How are you? Very good. Wow, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Any questions?
Yes, sir. So on Russia, have you made a final decision about what sanctions or tariffs you might impose on Russia and when that might be?
We're looking at a lot of things. We have big meetings coming up, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. That's going to include Russia. It'll be Ukraine. We'll see if we can get something done. Like to get something done. A lot of people died this week, as you know, in Ukraine. Not only Ukrainians, but Russians. So I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
Is President Putin disrespecting you by attacking Ukraine when you're trying to make peace there? Is President Putin disrespecting you by attacking Ukraine when you're trying to make peace there?
What did he do?
Well, he's attacking Ukraine.
Is he disrespecting me?
Yeah.
Who are you with?
I'm Michael Burnbaum from Washington Post.
You've lost a lot of credibility. Go ahead. What else?
Mr. President, question on Robert. Go ahead.
We're just about ready to land.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what. Of course you hesitate. Who knows? All I know is this: we're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you. You just watch. We're going to have jobs. We're going to have open factories. It's going to be great. And the plane is landing. And thank you for a lot of good questions. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, President.
What is clear at this hour is there is a lot of renewed talk, once again, about a possible recession setting in. What is not clear right now is how the Trump administration can stave one off if Trump's trade war drags on. And also not clear exactly what the president himself thinks about the risk. His words, who knows? Investors right now do not seem satisfied with that answer. U.S. stock futures are down this morning as we stand by for markets to open this hour. I want to play for you what Trump said about this.
But are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. Of course you hesitate. Who knows? All I know is this: we're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you. You just watch.
One thing also to watch is that the president is injecting new and more uncertainty into the economy, now warning that tariffs against Mexico and Canada, quote, could go up. That is right after he pumped the brakes on some of those tariffs just last week. Sina's Elena Treen at the White House joining us right now. And Elena, I understand the president's top economic advisor just spoke. You're able to hear from him. What did he say?
That's right. He said a lot of things, actually, and I was able to catch up with him, Kate, this morning here at the White House as well following that. First of all, he tried to argue that some of the uncertainty in the market, a lot of the uncertainty around trade policy and tariff policy is going to be offset by other economic priorities, like the tax cuts that are being proposed in this current spending bill. Of course, we have to see how that goes, and if there is a shutdown on Friday, that will only thrust the economy into more uncertainty. But he also argued and acknowledged that people are concerned about these tariffs, but he again said that he believes it would be temporary. Take a listen to how he put it.
People are anxious about future tariffs, and so they're stockpiling. And so that's a very, very temporary phenomenon.
So that's very similar rhetoric, Kate, to what we've heard the president say. Look, I mean, it is very different from also the rhetoric I think that we're used to as someone who's covered the president over the past few years. He's often overly optimistic, uses a lot of hyperbole, but he's been very open about saying there is going to be some short-term disturbances because of these tariff policies. And I think the stop and start nature of it, of course, as well, the having them be imposed, then taking a 1-month pause, imposing them again, then giving some exceptions for another month and saying they're going to go into effect on April 2nd. All of that is kind of whiplash we are seeing affected in the stock market. But again, we heard the president say, don't pay too much attention to the stock market. He says that, he admires the way that China has a 100-year outlook. He thinks that the United States needs to be more long-term and allow for the markets and Americans really to be patient. But I did find it very striking that he twice did not rule out higher prices at a time when so many Americans are concerned about their wallets, about inflation, and then also, of course, wouldn't rule out a potential recession. Now, one thing that's very clear from all of this is that he's really testing, and I think the Trump administration overall is doing this, testing the resiliency of the economy. And again, trying to look really far ahead rather than in the short term. But all of that we're still seeing. In the meantime, the market's really reacting to this. As you mentioned, stock futures down, and a lot of people concerned about what that could mean. And economists as well warning that in the next 12 months, if we don't see things change, there could be a recession, or as many people are concerned about, stagflation as well, Kate.
Yeah, Elena, thank you so much from the White House for us. Sarah?
All right, with us now to discuss more, Democratic strategist and CNN political commentator Maria Cardona, and also former Republican strategist and pollster Lee Carter. Lee, first to you. Donald Trump inherited an economy that was, by almost all accounts, on the rise, but prices were still high. Just 2 months, as we're looking at this, just a month in, he's not ruling out a recession after his decision.
Eventually, between Secretary Rubio and Secretary
No,
Duffy.
Clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup. But Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
But, Mr. President, bottom line,
Who are you with?
NBC.
No wonder. That's
Mr. President,
NBC.
who has more authority, Elon Musk or your cabinet secretaries?
Any other questions? They're both great guys. And by the way, they both get along fantastically well. Marco has done unbelievably as Secretary of State. And Elon is a very unique guy who's done a fantastic job.
I like talking about the World Cup.
I mean,
make no mistake, it's come to the United States. I'm very excited about it. But reporters don't have to just talk about the World Cup. No. So Gabe Gutierrez is asking the right questions there for NBC. Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman came up with this just explosive reporting a couple of days ago, which NBC confirmed. But it wasn't like it wasn't all kind of, smiles and laughs and daffodils inside that meeting. You had Marco at one point, Secretary of State, at one point saying to Elon, oh, okay, so the 1,500 people that have already taken early retirement, would you like me to hire them back, Elon, so you can fire them for show? And then you had Sean Duffy, according again to this extraordinary reporting by Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman, you had Sean Duffy going, hey, we got planes crashing. And your people are trying to fire air traffic controllers. And Elon Musk retorted, name one person that got fired. He goes, and Duffy responds, the Secretary of Transportation responds, I can't, because I stopped your people from firing them while planes were crashing. So this was not a happy meeting. It wasn't a happy exchange, but it was, as Swan and Haberman reported, it was quite possibly a turning point where Donald Trump is saying, okay, I selected you as cabinet secretaries. You all make the decisions. And Elon, you can offer guidance, and we'll be glad to listen to your guidance, and then they will make the final decision. So you've written a piece asking whether Doge is losing steam. What have you found out over the weekend since this explosive meeting?
Yeah, so there are a few things here. First, a lot of damage control from the White House after that meeting. You just saw President Trump there in the Oval Office talking about it. Secretary Rubio and Elon Musk had dinner at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. We saw Trump return to Washington last night with Elon Musk on Air Force One. He also defended the two of them on Truth Social, trying to downplay this clash. But as I reported, this was coming weeks in the making. First of all, President Trump had really soured on some of the bad headlines. Really, we know how much he pays attention to the media coverage of this. That dating all the way back from that moment we've discussed on this show when Jesse Waters on Fox News sort of almost very emotionally said, hey, be more careful with these cuts, talking about a friend of his who was going to be eliminated from the Pentagon, saying this needs to change how we're approaching this. Other cabinet secretaries for weeks now have complained to the White House and to their own staff, saying Musk is usurping our power. These should be our decisions on hirings and firings. Not saying they're not going to agree with Doge's recommendations, not saying they don't agree with the need to reduce the workforce, and in some cases dramatically so, but they wanted to have the final say on that, not Musk. And I'm told White House officials are seeing these legal challenges, and they've been on the losing end of some of them, in part because there's questions about whether Musk has the authority in Doge. Musk, of course,